Greetings, salutations, my fellow American sovereigns. This is the Vocational Science of Freedom Saturday Night Civics and 70 class. And tonight we're going to be covering some of President Trump's executive orders. And there's been a good member of the VSOF who's been posting them into the current happenings room on the VSOF Revolt server. And we'll be going through them one at a time. Probably won't get through all of them, obviously. I think the number is up to somewhere above 50 now, maybe a little more. And if you guys would like to join the Vocational Science Freedom Revolt server, you are welcome to do so. You can go to the show notes in any of the classes, which will then take you to the Vocational Science Freedom website, where you can then download the welcome package, and the invite to the Revolt server is within the package. So to start out, we covered last week the general first priorities from President Trump. And we went over back and forth about what's the power from the federal side, meaning what's the United States Federal Corporation doing, and Trump being the president of that corporation, compared to what could the states do, compared to what we the people could do. So we covered that last week. I'm going to skip a few more of these. Like, there's really no reason to go over the flag at the inauguration or to actually read the entire inaugural address. Anybody can watch that at their leisure on multiple different platforms. So I'm not going to rehash that. I'm just going to try and get into what are the more powerful EOs that he's been doing as of late. So I'm going to start with this one, the initial rescission of harmful executive orders and actions, and bring that up. And actually, before I read this, I want to show you guys something else. I found this site today when I was looking around for just information about executive orders in general. And this is from the website, the American Presidency Project. And it talks about executive orders and this, that. But the interesting thing about it was this chart they have here. So these are all the executive orders by average per year, the president and how many they did, so on and so forth. And in reading this, I was actually kind of stunned in the beginning as to what certain presidents did as far as executive orders were concerned. You know, George Washington 8, John Adams only 1, Thomas Jefferson 4. You know, there's these small numbers here. William Henry Harrison didn't do any. But the shocking number that I got down here too was these. Woodrow Wilson, 1,800 of them. And then Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 3,721. I thought that was just ridiculous. But of course, that was everything that he did in the New Deal to completely turn us into a corporatocracy and to administer everyone as infants, as foundlings, which is when the gigantic administrative building went up next to the White House, was in 33. So I just found this number very shocking. And then I was going to get down and also show you guys. So to date, at least if this is current, I think they keep this as fairly current as it can be. Okay, so last updated yesterday. So, okay, so Trump's up to 59 of them. Okay, so anyway, I just thought this was an interesting little snippet, little link. And I'll be sure to put this into the show notes as far as where you guys can go find it. And I'll put it into our mega chat right now. Okay, so all right. First one here. Initial rescissions of harmful executive orders and actions. This was obviously getting rid of everything that Biden had been doing for the last 4 years. Okay, Section 1, Purpose and Policy. The previous administration has embedded deeply unpopular, inflationary, illegal, and radical practices within every agency and office of the federal government. No question there. The injection of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, into our institutions has corrupted them by replacing hard work, merit, and equality with a divisive and dangerous preferential hierarchy. Orders to open the borders have endangered the American people and dissolved federal, state, and local resources that should be used to benefit the American people. Climate extremism has exploded inflation and overburdened businesses with regulation. To compensate the policies that will make our nation united, fair, safe, and prosperous again, it is the policy of the United States to restore common sense to the federal government. I'm sure that those two words weren't lost on a lot of people. And unleash the potential of the American citizen. Now, of course, that's lowercase c, but anyway, that's talking about 14th Amendment citizens. The revocations within this order will be the first of many steps the United States federal government will take to repair our institutions and our economy. So, Section 2, all the things that he revoked. Executive Order 3, well, I'm not going to read all the numbers, but anyway, first one on here starts with 13,985. So he revoked advancing racial equality supported for underserved communities through the federal government. Right. That's more of that aspect of DEI. Next one, he revoked ensuring a lawful and accurate enumeration and apportionment pursuant to the essential census. I don't know what that one would have been about. Next one, organizing and mobilizing the United States government to provide a unified and effective response to combat COVID-19 and to provide United States leadership on global health and security. Right. I'm sure that was probably releasing a lot of money to people that shouldn't be having it. Probably Fauci and the rest of his boys of all the shit cannery that they've been doing and had been doing for many, many years before that. Next one, preventing and combating discrimination on the basis of gender, identity, or sexual orientation. Again, that's more DEI garbage. Next one, ethics commitments by executive branch personnel, probably having to do with the same thing. Protecting public health and environment by restoring science to tackle the climate crisis. Well, the whole climate ridiculousness being used to siphon as much money in just one more useless direction from the United States Treasury. So, next one, revocation of certain executive orders concerning federal regulation. Don't know what that one would have been. Next one, revision of civil immigration enforcement policies and priorities. Well, this one's literally the open border policy, or at least part and parcel thereof. And just to make a point about the whole problem with immigration, when you have a situation where you're not having people immigrate to a country under the specific laws laid down. And let's, as an aside, just kind of say, okay, I don't personally believe that the current forms of law and the policies that are now in place for immigration are even valid as they're written. But let's just put that aside for a second and just say that when you have this many people, millions and millions and millions of people streaming across the border, cannot be defined as immigration. That has to be defined as invasion, because there's everything from Chinese spies to Venezuelan gangs to all of these violent criminals, drug dealers coming across the border, going into and then causing havoc in all various different places in our United States. That is an invasion. And I would say also it is a form of war. Now, it's not one country that is doing this. It is one group of people, the dark occultists. And certainly Soros is, high up in that chain. And that's what their plan was to destroy the demographics of America and to break it down so that there would be no more resistance from our country, because America is pretty much the last best bastion of freedom in the entire planet. We're still the only country that allows everybody to be armed. Well, I should take that back. Not everyone. There are certain countries that actually buy the weapons for the citizens, like the Swiss, but they've got other things to quote unquote protect in Switzerland, but let's not get into that. And so what else are they going to be doing here as far as the destruction of America? Okay, fentanyl and, like I said, Chinese spies, which will, I'm sure, start destroying infrastructure here not too long. I've already seen a few news reports of younger Asian men that were dressed up as disguised and masked that literally flat out assassinated someone, just like right outside their home, no reason, and then the guy fled. Okay, is there any connection? Do I have any proof that that was a Chinese spy? No, but that's exactly how they would do it. And so then you've let, the CCP in here in the back door. So the border has to be shut down. Everybody has to be sent back from wherever the hell they came from. And everybody else that's a high-level criminal can go to Gitmo, or they can go to whatever the country was recently, and I think it was in Central America. I don't remember which country it was. Was it Ecuador or Argentina? I don't remember. One of the leaders said literally to Trump that he'll take the prisoners because they've created a whole massive prison industry in that country because they had to destroy all of the gang and drug cartels that were going on in that country. And they did it basically in one foul swoop, and they're not apologetic about it. And he basically told Trump, hey, I've got plenty more housing down here if you want to send them. So we'll see how that plays out in the next few months. But okay, so that's my little rant on the whole immigration problem. Okay, next one. El Salvador, thank you. That was the one. Yep. Next one, ensuring equitable pandemic response and recovery. Again, that's more COVID lie. Establishing the COVID-19 pandemic testing board and ensuring a sustainable public health workforce, blah, 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 and other biological threats. Again, that's more lies. That's them releasing their man-made bugs to take us out. And we all know who's responsible for that. Next one, improving and expanding access to care and treatment for COVID. Again, more of that. Protecting worker health and safety, probably more COVID. Supporting and recouping continuing operation of schools and early childhood education providers. Supporting the reopening and continuing operation of schools and early. Okay. So that's a from COVID, whatever. Economic, but there's probably a bunch of nefarious stuff thrown into many of these executive orders, because obviously we're not going back and reading all of this stuff that Biden did. Next one, economic relief related to COVID. Yeah, right. Protecting the federal workforce, enabling all qualified Americans to serve their country in uniform. Oh, that was I'm not sure, but that certainly sounds like putting transgenders into the military, which Trump just obviously immediately got rid of, if not just by this, but there was also another one I think it was specific to that. Next one, reforming our incarceration system to eliminate the use of private operated criminal detention facilities. What? To eliminate the use of private. Oh, so Biden, wait, I never know that happened. So reforming our incarceration system to eliminate the use of privately operated criminal detention facilities. If there's anyone in this list that I've read so far, that would actually be an interesting one to go back and see what Biden actually did there. But anyway, I don't personally believe that there should be any private for-profit prison systems, because that is literally the prison industrial complex where, and I could talk about this for a whole hour, so I'll try and make this brief, but basically what we have in America, what the lawfare has done, what the attorney has done is created a system wherein we have the highest per capita prison population in one of the countries in the entire planet, and yet we have really, really nice prisons. Okay, well, what are they doing? They're administering the estates of the infant, but they're also then using the human resource as incarcerated labor for the production of products. And Victoria's Secret's the only one that comes to mind right off the top of my head. I mean, most people think, oh, prison labor, they're punching out, license plates. Well, yeah, sure, that's part of it. But when you allow then private corporations to come in and exploit that slave population and give them nothing for it, well, that's the totality of what the prison industrial complex is. So you get these massive corporations like Wackenhut, Prison Corp of America, so on and so forth. And all of this got started with the omnibus crime bill that Clinton passed with the 3 strikes you're out bullshit. Then you get life in prison. Okay, well, they set that up so that you could have all these drug related crimes where there wasn't actually a damaged party, and then you got 3 strikes and you're out. And now you're a permanent work slave for the prison industrial complex. So anyway, that's just want to give you guys like a rounded understanding of that before I continued here. Okay, next one. President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. Tackling the climate crisis at home and abroad. That's obviously more money going to fake climate crisis. Strengthening Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Yeah, there's some part I forgot. There was something about this that I'd heard about, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But the Affordable Care Act was definitely something that was sucking off a lot of money also from the federal piggy bank. Next one, creating comprehensive regional framework to address the cause of migration. Yeah, right. To manage migration through North and Central America. Oh, to manage it. Oh, okay. So Biden was deciding to manage migration through North and Central America. And to provide safe and orderly processing of asylum seekers at the United States border. Right. So this is your open invasion policy right here. And if there's anything, honestly, if you take it to its most logical conclusion, Biden not only allowed an invasion, he instigated it by things like this. Okay. If the president of the United States instigates an invasion of his own country, last time I checked, couldn't that be considered treason? I would say so. So, anyway. Next one, establishment of interagency task force on the reunification of families. That sounds migrant related, but I'm not sure. Next one, restoring faith in our legal immigration system and strengthening integration and inclusion efforts for new Americans. Again, that's just the open border policy. Rebuilding and enhancing programs to resettle refugees and planning for the impact of climate change on migration. Well, really? So the impact of climate change on our migration. The resettle refugees. What this means to resettle refugees. This is what happened when you have small Midwestern towns that then all of a sudden get an influx of so many people that don't speak their language and don't follow the rules and don't have any decency, that they then all of a sudden put 1/3 more of the population of that town into the town, but made up of people that shouldn't ever have been there. That's that problem. Resettling refugees. Establishment of White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. Don't know what that is. Revocation of certain presidential actions. Promoting access to voting. Right. In case anybody forgets, the only counties and states and places that Kamala Harris won, only the places that did not require ID for voting. So just a little reminder of that. Next one, establishment of the White House General Policy Council. Okay. Guaranteeing an educational environment free from discrimination on the basis of sex, including sexual orientation and gender identity. This is the Luciferian mindset coming in to alter the sexuality of kids and to destroy them at a young age. That's all that is. Termination of emergency with respect to International Criminal Court. Don't know what that one was. Establishment of the Presidential Commission of Supreme Court. What? Presidential Commission on the Supreme Court of the United States. That just sounds nefarious right off the bat, so I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I'm glad it's gone. Establishment of the Climate Change Support Office. Again, more money going to nothing. Revocation of certain presidential actions and technical amendment. Climate-related financial risk. Advancing equity, justice, and opportunity for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. Yeah, you wouldn't want to advance it for, like everybody. Next one, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the federal workforce. DEI, death. Next one, strengthening American leadership in clean cars and trucks. That's just trying to get everybody to drive an electric car, which will never happen. Amending executive order, whatever one that was. Next one, White House initiative on advancing educational equity, excellence, and economic opportunity for Hispanics. Again, not everybody, just, White House initiative on advancing educational equity, okay, Native Americans and tribal colleges. White House initiative on advancing for opportunity for Black Americans. Right. Notice the one race that isn't mentioned. White people. Yeah. Anyway, next, implementation of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Don't know what that one would have been. Non-displacement of qualified workers under service contracts. Catalyzing clean energy industries and jobs through federal sustainability. I don't even know if I want to read all the rest of these. I mean, this just goes on and 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 on. So these are all the things that he whacked with literally, I think the first pen stroke was all of these. And again, if you want to look at all these, they're in the Vocational Science of Freedom Revolt server, all listed all the way down in the current happenings room. And from all of this getting whacked, you just know that the vast majority of this was a ridiculous amount of money being sucked out of the treasury for things that should never have been being paid for. So I'm running down the list here. So Section 3, implementation. To effectuate the revocations described in Section 2 of this order, the heads of each agency shall take immediate steps to end federal implementation of unlawful and radical DEI ideology. Yep. Director of Domestic Policy, DPC, the Director of the National Economic Council, shall review all federal government actions taken pursuant to the orders, memorandum, and proclamations listed in Section 2 of this order, and take necessary steps to rescind, replace, or amend such actions as appropriate. Within 45 days of the date of this order, the Director of the DPC and the Director of the NEC shall submit to the President an additional list of orders, memorandum, and proclamations issued by the prior administration that should be rescinded, as well as a list of replacement orders, memorandum, and proclamations to increase American prosperity. Right. National security advisors shall immediately begin to complete thorough review of all national security memoranda issued January 20th, 2021 through so all of Biden's administration, for harm to national security, domestic resilience, and American values. Okay, got no problem with that one. No later than 45 days from the date of this order, the NSA shall recommend to the President NSMs for rescission. Oh, National Security Memoranda for rescission. Okay. Yeah, because you got to remember that. Okay, so Biden did all these executive orders. Right, you got to whack all those. But then you have to whack all of the national security memorandum that he did as well. So that's what this whole section is. But they've got to get back to him as far as what they think they should get rid of. General provisions, nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect 1, the authority granted by law to an executive department or agency or the head thereof, or 2, the functions of the Director of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. This, by the way, everybody, the Office of Management and Budget, or I think it used to be reversed. I think it used to be Office of Budget and Management, if I recall, unless there's two of them. This is one of the most powerful agencies in all of the federal government, because this is the purse strings right here. Okay. Meaning on the executive side of the purse strings where all this magical money just goes flying out. Well, guess who has the receipts? So, next one, this order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. Yep. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person, also known as an infant. White House, January 20th, so on and so forth. Okay, so that was numero uno. Now let's go take a look and see what the next one is. So that was all the rescissions. That's what we're getting rid of. Or at least that's what he got rid of all in the beginning. Next one looks like it is a free speech one. And take a look at that one. This is restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. Good idea. By the authority vested, Section 1, purpose. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution. That really should read, well, everybody knows how it should read, but anyway. An amendment essential to the resource. Oh, hello, Republic. An amendment essential to the success of our Republic enshrines the right of the American people, at least you got that right, to speak freely and notice that a right, notice that a right is only to American people. Just pay attention to that. Okay. Whenever we're going to see American people in any of these, that's going to be us, the sovereign people, not the 14th Amendment citizen slaves. Okay. Anyway, enshrines the right of the American people to speak freely in public square without government interference. Right. Over the last 4 years, the previous administration trampled free speech rights by censoring Americans' speech on online platforms, often by exerting substantial coercive pressure on third parties, of which we know quite a bit of. Part and parcel of the whole reason why Elon Musk bought X, or bought Twitter, turned it into X, such as social media companies, IBID, to moderate, deplatform, or otherwise suppress speech that the federal government did not approve, right? Because now we have all of the information, not only from the Twitter files, which was released after Elon took it over, but we now know that there were dozens and dozens of FBI agents and other wetworks, fucks, all over Twitter, telling them what to do, what to get rid of, and what to watch for, and so on and so forth. Leah asks, not citizen, do you think he is keenly aware of the difference? I wouldn't necessarily even begin to guess what Trump's aware of or what he's not aware of, but I know this. I know every executive order is written by an attorney, and I know they know the difference. So these things are not just random words in here. Like when it comes to the American people part, trust me, that's there for a reason. And specifically because it followed the word republic. We the people are the only ones who are habitants of the republic. The little 14th Amendment citizens, the citizens of the United States, subject to the jurisdiction of Congress, they don't inhabit the republic. They are residents of the District of Columbia. So, yeah. So over the last 4 years, previous administration, trampled, all right, under the guise of combating misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation, basically whatever the government didn't want them to say. The federal government infringed on the constitutionally protected speech rights of, and now it says speech rights of American citizens across the United States in a manner that advanced the government. See, up here, look, American people have a right. So they said infringed on the protected free speech rights of American citizens. Well, again, lowercase c, there was a list that I had at one point in time of which stated, I think it's in my case law. Anyway, I had a list of which articles of the Bill of Rights are actually accessible and are actually protected from encroachment, even by the 14th Amendment citizen. Because we, the people, have all of them, but the 14th Amendment citizen doesn't. They only have a portion of it. The list is somewhere. I'd have to go grab it and bring it up. But maybe that's something I can grab and bring up for next class, because it is kind of an important thing to understand. And freedom of speech is probably one of the ones that the citizen slaves have as well. So anyway, across the United States in a manner that advanced the government's preferred narrative about significant matters of public debate, government censorship of speech is intolerable in a free society. True. Policy. It is the policy of the United States, A, to secure the rights of the American people to engage in constitutionally protected free speech. Yep. Ensure that no federal government officer, employee, or agent engages in or facilitates any conduct that would unconstitutionally abridge the free speech of any American citizen. Ensure that no taxpayer resources are used to engage or facilitate any conduct that would unconstitutionally abridge the free speech of any American citizen. And identify and take appropriate action to correct past misconduct by the federal government related to censorship of protected speech. Ending censorship of protected speech. No federal department, agency, entity, officer, employee, or agent may act or use any federal resources in a manner contrary to Section 2 of this order. The Attorney General, in consultation with the heads of the executive departments and agencies, shall investigate the activities of the federal government over the last 4 years that are inconsistent with the purposes and policies of this order and prepare a report to be submitted to the President through the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy with recommendations for appropriate remedial actions to be taken based on the findings of the report. Yeah. I think the Attorney General is going to be pretty busy in the next couple months. Not just about this either, about everything. Section 4, general provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by law. Okay, so it's basically the boilerplate and part of how the last one went. budget management, appropriations, not intended to create. Yep. Okay. So this is like section 4 seems to be like the boilerplate for, well, at least these last two. Okay. So that's those two. And let's go see what we have for the next one here. So we've got freedom of speech one, that one, ending the weaponization of the federal government. That sounds like a good read. And the ending of the weaponization of the federal government. Section 1, purpose. The American people have witnessed the previous administration engage in a systematic campaign against its perceived political opponents. Isn't that the truth? Weaponizing the legal force of numerous federal law enforcement agencies and the intelligence community against those perceived political opponents in the form of investigations, prosecutions, civil enforcement actions, and other related actions. Yeah, like planting evidence at Mar-a-Lago, amongst other things. These actions appear oriented more toward inflicting political pain than toward pursuing actual justice or legitimate governmental objectives. Fully agree with that. The United States Federal Corporation and all of its minions have turned into a banana republic. Not to say they weren't there already, probably sometime shortly after 1933, but their slips are showing now. Many of these activities appear to be inconsistent with the Constitution and or the laws of the United States. True. Including those activities directed at parents protesting at school board meetings. True. Americans who spoke out against the previous administration's actions and other Americans who were simply exercising constitutionally protected rights. True. Oh, thank you, Leah. Leah just put a link to all of the executive orders into the Mega, if you guys want to also bookmark that and save it. The prior administration and allies throughout the country engaged in a unprecedented third world weaponization of prosecutorial power to upend the democratic process. Yeah. This is where you get into all the ridiculousness, the heavy hitting amount of unbelievable fuckery that's been going on through U.S. aid. I don't even know what the number's up to or how much they found, but when I was reading through what little I could pick through from news stories and other media platforms, I was shocked at how much money and the stupidity of the stuff that they were doing to do these things in, third world weaponization of prosecutorial powers, upend the democratic process. Anyway, he's talking about, obviously Trump's talking about doing it here, but I was just talking about it in that they're doing it in every country. They were using USA to do this in every country all around the world. Okay, maybe not every country, but too numerous to mention, let's put it that way. So they were exporting dark Luciferian attorney lawfare and barratry to the entire world. That's what we've been exporting for the past 4 years. So anyway, to continue, it targeted individuals who voiced opposition to the prior administration's policy with numerous federal investigations and politically motivated funding revocations, which cost Americans access to needed services. The Department of Justice even jailed an individual for posting a political meme. Well, that seems to be the norm now over in England. And while the Department of Justice has ruthlessly prosecuted more than 1,500 individuals associated with January 6th and simultaneously dropped nearly all cases against BLM rioters. Right. That's a telling fact now, isn't it? Now, on a side note, this being February 8th, 2025, I have now heard of 3 of the J6ers who have been summarily executed after they were released. And no one's looking for any of the suspects. Why does that not surprise me? So, if you were in one of those federal gulags and you're now out, I highly suggest that you get body armor. I highly suggest that you fucking wear it on a regular basis, even in your house. And I highly suggest that you stay armed at all times. And anybody that comes up to you that's suspect, pull your weapon out and draw it on them. Do not let them get the jump on you, because this is absolute war now. They have people going around summarily executing them. That's fear tactics. So just be prepared. That's all I'm saying. Because you always have the right to defend your life against anyone for any reason. Period. Full stop. To continue, therefore, this order sets forth a process to ensure accountability for the previous administration's weaponization of the federal government against the American people. Yep. Section 2, policy. It is the policy of the United States to identify and take appropriate action to correct past misconduct by the federal government related to the weaponization of law enforcement and the weaponization of the intelligence community. Yeah, the totality of that sentence is more than anybody could ever lay out. Section 3, sorry. Ending the weaponization of the federal government. A, the Attorney General, in consultation with the heads of all departments and agencies of the United States, shall take appropriate action to review the activities of all departments and agencies exercising civil or criminal enforcement authority of the United States, including, but not limited to, the Department of Justice, the Securities Exchange Commission, Federal Trade Commission, over the last 4 years, and identify any instances where the department's or agency's conduct appears to have been contrary to the purposes and policies of this order, and prepare a report and submit it, so on and so forth. Director of National Intelligence, in consultation with the heads of appropriate departments and agencies within the intelligence community, shall take all appropriate action to review the activities of the intelligence community over the last 4 years. Well, depending how far down they dig, that could open up all kinds of worms. And identify any instances where the intelligence community's conduct appears to have been contrary to the purposes and policies of this order. Pretty much all of them. And prepare a report to be submitted to the President through Deputy Chief of Staff, Policy and National Security Advisor, with recommendations for appropriate remedial actions, so on and so forth, to take them out. The term intelligence community has the meaning given the term in Section 3003 of Title 50 U.S. Code. Okay. Don't feel like going and looking that up, but I would be curious after class to actually see what the totality of that is. Or if anybody else wants to look it up and put it on into chat, that'd be great. C, the furtherance of these policies, departments, and agencies are directed to comply with applicable document retention policies and legal obligations. Right. We don't want everything getting thrown in the shredder. Instances of noncompliance with document retention policies or legal obligations will be referred to the Attorney General. Yep. And by the way, this one, if it's specifically a public record and you secret or destroy a public record, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's 5 years right off the bat. So, yeah. Section 4, general provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or affect otherwise. Okay, so here's the boilerplate again. All right, so that's that one. Okay, well, that one was good. That was interesting because that was definitely what was going on under Biden. It was the weaponization of all the federal government. Literally, banana republic bullshit. Return in person to work. I think we know what this one is, but it's probably just really short. I'm just going to take a quick look at it. Yep, real short. Heads of all departments and agencies of the executive branch of government shall, as soon as practicable, take all necessary steps to terminate remote work arrangements and require employees to return to work in person at their respective duty stations on a full-time basis, provided that the department and agency heads shall make exemptions they deem necessary. That was simple but obvious, and no one else is going to be just sitting at home doing nothing. Regulatory freeze pending review. Okay, check this one out. By the authority vested in me, so on and so forth. I hereby order all executive departments and agencies, to take the following steps. All right, so these are positive things. 1, and I don't mean positive as in they're necessarily automatically good. I'm just saying positive as in it's do this because I say so. Do not propose or issue any rule in any manner, including by sending a rule to the Office of the Federal Registrar. Yeah, which, by the way, is where everything goes. In case anybody doesn't know how the federal government kind of works, whenever you have any rule or ruling or change or thing that needs to be done, everything goes to and gets sent to the Office of the Federal Registrar. The Federal Registrar, right? Because everything's registered. Because we're sitting in Roman civil law here, infants. So anyway, if you ever want to find anything, go to the Federal Registrar. It's in there. Okay, until a department or agency head appointed or designated by the president after noon on January 20th, 2025, reviews and approves the rule. Right. Okay, so what this is stopping is all of the administrative agencies under the Administrative Procedures Act, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a completely unconstitutional act to begin with and should be eradicated. But as an aside, this is what that stops. It says, nope, we're going to review everything before it gets thrown in there, because This is a stopgap to make sure that they don't go behind Trump's back and try and throw things in that would alter or change any aspect of possibly the EOs that he's doing. And for other obvious reasons, they just don't want them to continue to be doing the shit cannery that they have been doing for 4 years and probably prior to that. The department or agency head may delegate this power of review and approval to any other person so appointed or designated by the president, consistent with applicable law. The director or acting director of the Office of Budget and Management, there's that gargantuan of an office again, the elephant on top of the elephant, may exempt any rule that he deems necessary to address emergency situations or other urgent circumstances, including rules subject to statutory or judicial deadlines that require prompt action. Yep. Like I said, OMB is one of the most powerful fucking agencies in all government. 2, immediately withdraw any rules that have been sent to the Office of Foreign, let me get this right. Federal Office of Federal Registrar, thank you, but not published in the Federal Registrar, so that they can be reviewed and approved as described in paragraph 1. Oh, so they get to, all right. So they get to pull them out and read them to see what they're up to, but they're not going to register them. Makes sense. 3, consistent with applicable law and subject to the exceptions described in paragraph 1, consider postponing for 60 days from the date of this memorandum the effective date of any rules. Of any rules that have been published in the Federal Registrar. Okay. Or any rules that have been issued in any manner but have not taken effect for the purpose of reviewing any question of fact, law, and policy that the rules may raise. Good idea. During the 60-day period, where appropriate and consider it with applicable law, consider opening a comment period to allow interested parties to provide comments about issues of fact, law, and policy raised by the rules postponed under this memorandum. Oh, okay, I see what he's doing. He's gathering information to say, okay, what were they really doing here? And consider reevaluating pending petitions involving such rules as appropriate and consistent with applicable law, and where necessary to continue to review these questions of fact, law, and policy. Consider further delaying or publishing for notice and comment proposed rules further delaying such rules beyond the 60-day period. Yep. So if we find something fishy, we're going to postpone it for even longer. Makes sense. Following the postponement described, no further action needs to be taken by those rules that raise no substantial questions of, okay. For those rules that raise substantial questions of fact, law, or policy, agencies should notify and take further appropriate action in consultation with OMB. Yep. Comply in all circumstances with any applicable executive orders concerning regulatory management. Right. So, in a sense, what I'm getting from this one is literally Trump just froze everything that would be under the Administrative Procedures Act, all of it. Because if they can't get anything into the Federal Registrar, they're cut off. That's it. They don't, it's like they don't exist. So this is actually a much more powerful than I originally thought when I started to read it, because now I'm realizing what they're doing, which is a good thing. As far as I'm concerned, like I said, I think the entire act needs to be deemed unconstitutional and sued out of existence. But this is a good start. At least it stops everything right in the beginning. Okay. As used in this random rule, as the definition set forth in 551.4 Title 5 U.S. Code. It also includes any regulatory action as defined in Section 3E of Executive Order 12866 of September 30th, 1993, as amended, and any quote-unquote guidance document as defined in Section 2B of Executive Order 13891 of October 9th, 2019, promoting the rule of law through improved agency guidance documents. Okay. When that order was in effect. Thus, the requirements of this memorandum apply not only to quote-unquote rules as defined in 5514 of Title V, but also to any substantive action by an agency normally published in the Federal Registrar. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It stops everything that promulgates or is expected to lead to the promulgation of a final rule or regulation, including notices of injury, advances, notices of proposed rulemaking, and notices of proposed rulemaking, which is pretty much everything that they do. Yeah, that's everything that the federal agencies under the Administrative Procedures Act do, is everything that they just stated. It's okay, aside from a few other things like holding their own private courts, but I don't get into all that. They shall also apply to any agency statement of general applicability and future effect that sets forth a policy on a statutory, regulatory, or technical issue or an interpretation of statutory or regulatory issue. Okay. The OMB director, the big man, shall oversee the implementation of this memorandum, and any communications regarding any matter pertaining to this review should be addressed to the OMB director. The OMB director is also authorized to establish a process by review pending collections of information under Paperwork Reduction Act, as codified, so on and so forth, and to take actions that the OMB director deems appropriate based on that review consistent with applicable law. Yep. As I said, OMB is the hammer. They're one of the most powerful ones there. Should these actions be identified that were undertaken before noon, such and such, that frustrate the purpose underlying this memorandum, I may modify or extend this memorandum to require that department and agency heads consider taking steps to address those actions. The OMB director is authorized and directed to publish this memorandum in the Federal Register. Right. Okay. That was an interesting one because that's literally cutting off the entire administrative state. And that's pretty cool. Okay. Probably able to get through maybe one more, depending on how long these next couple ones are. This next one is for delivering emergency price relief for American families and defeating the cost of living crisis. Okay. Over the past 4 years, the Biden administration's destructive policies inflicted an historic inflation crisis on the American people. Well, yes and no. At the same time, when anybody ever wants to blame a president for a certain amount of inflation or lack thereof, it really doesn't have a damn thing to do with the president. It has everything to do with this criminal, foreign cartel run by the Khazarian mob called the Federal Reserve. If we do not get rid of that filthy fucking institution and burn it down during Trump's administration, we'll never get rid of it. I can guarantee you that, unless we, the people, do it. But it's that single beast that has to be eviscerated, destroyed, and every single fuck that works in there, as far as I'm concerned, needs to be tried for treason and theft. Get rid of it. Enough. That's where inflation comes from, because money gets created out of nothing. It gets boosted into existence by one person borrowing from another. Don't believe me? Pull out a worthless Federal Reserve note out of your pocket right now and look at it. It has 2 signatures on it. Care to make a wager or care to venture who those 2 people are? Where these 2 things come from? And why this one guy is telling this other guy that he owes him 5 of these things? And where did the bonds come from? And yada, 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 yada. Yeah, people might want to wake up to the fact that the money has been counterfeited since 1913. So we don't get rid of that thing. I honestly don't feel like it matters anything what anybody does, Trump or otherwise. You don't get rid of that thing, we don't have a country. You have to get rid of the Federal Reserve. You have to eviscerate it once and for all. End of story. Anyway, to continue. The Biden administration not only exploded government spending artificially and unsustainably stimulating demand, but it simultaneously made necessary goods and services scarce through a crushing regulatory burden and radical policies deciding to weaken American production. Okay, well, you put those 2 things together, that sure as fuck isn't going to help the situation regarding inflation. But again, inflation is not anything that a president can do anything about. Hardworking families today are overwhelmed with the cost of fuel, house, fooding, everything. Dog food, yep. In particular, the assault on plentiful and reliable American energy through unnecessary and illegal regulatory demands has driven up the cost of transportation and manufacturing. Now, that is his fault. That I'll totally go along with. Because the feds have the capacity to regulate commerce between the states, and so they have the capacity to shut down things like oil pipelines. But to continue, in addition, the unlawful regulatory mandates on companies to effectively eliminate many or most gas-powered vehicles has resulted in artificial price increases on those popular vehicles to subsidize electric vehicles disfavored by customers. Okay. A little bit of opinion in there, but all right. Moreover, many Americans are unable to purchase homes due to historically high prices. Well, not debating that, but I'm just pausing here for a minute because if you seriously think about deporting the millions and millions of people that should not be here, you're going to see home prices plummet. I mean, absolutely drop like a rock, because all the supply will come back. So anyway, just something to think about. So if you're thinking about buying a house, don't do it yet. That's what I'm saying. Just wait a few years. All right, to continue. In part due to regulatory requirement that alone account for 25% of the cost of consuming a new home, according to recent analysis. Well, that's pretty bad. 25%? Yeah. In some, unprecedented regulatory oppression from Biden administration is estimated to have imposed almost $50,000 in cost on the average American household, whereas my first-term agenda reduced regulatory costs by almost $11,000 per household. It is critical to restore purchasing power to the American family and improve our quality of life. No argument here. I hereby order the heads of all the executive departments and agencies to deliver emergency price relief consistent with applicable law to the American people and increase the prosperity of the American worker. Read that again. Hereby order the heads of all executive departments and agencies to deliver emergency price relief. Emergency? I don't know what he means by emergency price relief. You mean literally setting prices? I don't think that's lawful, but okay, it might mean something else. Someone else says consistent with applicable law. So, but still, I don't know how you get around altering a price. But anyway, this shall include pursuing appropriate actions to, lower the cost of housing and expand housing supply, eliminate unnecessary administrative expenses and rent-seeking practices that increase healthcare costs, eliminate counterproductive requirements that raise the cost of home appliances, create employment opportunities for American workers, include drawing discouraged workers into the labor force, and eliminate harmful coercive climate policies that increase the cost of food and fuel. Within 30 days of the date of this memorandum, the Assistant of the President of Economic Policy shall report to me and every 30 days thereafter on the status of the implementation of this memorandum. Well, I'm all for that one. I mean, there were some policies in there, some aspects that, obviously other things need to get out of the way first. Like I said criminal cartel, but as for that, so be it. Okay, coming up on the hour here, I will unmute everybody in Mega Chat. And if you guys have any comments or questions about any of that which I just read, feel free. The floor is open. I would like to finish up that treatise that we'd been doing, and there's some other things that I'd like to start to talk about regarding more about the process, the VSOF status doc process, and the importance of getting your status docs done, particularly in this window that we have with Trump in the administration, because there was a lot of problems during the last 4 years with people having to try and get information or get documents from the federal government, specifically getting their birth certificate authenticated. Not so much on the state side. That's pretty much has been the same through the whole entire process. But on the federal side, some people were having a ridiculous long period of time getting back their authenticated BCs. So hopefully that'll speed up the process. Also, there'll be other things that I want to talk about regarding all of us working together who have done our VSOF status doc process and are clearly now delineated on the public record as one of the people of the several states of the American Union and not being seen any longer as a resident of the District of Columbia. So I think I'll read some of these and record them and put them up so that people can know what they're about and take a look at them and listen, at your leisure as far as how many might get put up. So, Leah asked, can I talk about how U.S. citizens may be entitled to rights outlined in the First 10 Amendment? Yeah. Let me just take a second. I will open up my law of the case, which is just my place of where I have stored case law for basically 30 years. And I'm going to go to and let's find privilege. I think that's probably the best word to be able to find what we're looking for here. Okay, so let's go down. And once I find these, I will open this up a little bit more. A grant of corporate existence is a grant of special privileges to the corporation enabling. Okay, not this one. If the state converts a liberty into a privilege, the citizen can engage in the right with impunity. Okay, fine, but that's not what I was looking for. No state may convert a secured liberty into a right, privilege, and issue a license for it. Fine. Is this the one? Because I know I have it in here. I was literally just reading it the other day. Oh, here it is. Or yeah, here's part of it. Okay, let me grab. Should be this whole one. I'll put this in the chat. So this is Supreme Court, Jones versus Trimmer. The Privileges and Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment protects very few rights because it neither incorporates the Bill of Rights nor protects all rights of individual citizens. Instead, this provision protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the federal government. It does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship. Okay, so that's one of them. And I know I've got more than one of these in here, but that's the first one. Next one. There are differences between privileges and immunities belonging to the citizens of the United States as such, and those belonging to the citizens of each state as such. Now, that doesn't give you a lot of information, but it does clearly delineate between the two of them that there is actually a difference. I'll throw that one in the chat as well. And I think I've got a few more in here somewhere. Here's the list. The first 8 amendments have uniformly been held not to be protected from state action by the Privileges and Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment. So, okay, so there's your kind of like your aspect. So the states can't mess
What is that from? It's just from a case?
Yeah. So it's Hague versus CIO, whatever that is, and then there's the federal log number here. I can put this in too if you want.
Have you read the entire case for the ones for?
No, here's the thing about my law of the case, and this goes for anybody that ever has a copy of this because it is on the online members library. There is something specific about the law of the case. Now, all of the stuff that I haven't read, I personally have not shepherdized. So just know that. So I found all this and I've thrown it in here, but I personally have not shepherdized it. So, and I make that very clear in the beginning of the document. So everything else that I have, either a colleague of mine has shepherdized or I personally have shepherdized. And we threw out
everything that's not read, you're saying?
Yeah, everything that's not read has been shepherdized. So this stuff, technically, no, I have not shepherdized it. But, I grab these things from various different places, and a lot of this stuff comes either from federal documents or other places that I find it, and wouldn't usually come from any situation or place that would just flat out lie about case law. Be that as it may, do your own homework.
There might be some ignorant ones.
Yep. Because I've even caught the Supreme Court messing up cases. So anyway, all right, next one. The right to trial by jury in civil cases granted by the 7th Amendment, the right to bear arms granted by the 2nd Amendment, have been distinctly held not to be privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. And in effect, the same decision was made in respect to the guarantee against prosecution, except by indictment of a grand jury, which means they don't have to do a grand jury to second-class citizen slaves, contained in the 5th Amendment, and in respect to the right to be confronted with witness contained in the 6th. And it was held that the indictment made indispensable by the 5th and trial by jury granted by the 6th were not privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States, and those words were used in the 14th Amendment. We conclude, therefore, that the exemption from compulsory self-incrimination is not a privilege or immunity of national citizenship guaranteed by this clause of the 14th. That one is definitely in your face.
Yeah, so we have all these people thinking they can use that they're party to the Constitution, but they're really not unless they've done their doc set.
That's right. You have absolutely no protection from the Bill of Rights unless you have actually done your status correction.
How does the Supreme Court deal with that? They can kind of just pick and choose what they're going to accept and let through.
Well, what do you mean by that?
What do I mean?
Because they never deviate from what they're doing.
What about all those people during COVID that were searched and they're oh, you're not following the stay-at-home orders? And
they're all being treated like infants under federal law as 14th Amendment citizens.
It's more profound than that because their 4th Amendment their 4th Amendment wasn't violated because they don't have it. They're not a party to it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And it's crazy because how do you ever get justice? You think you have this right, but you don't even know what a right is, and you don't even realize that it's been contracted away.
Exactly. Yeah, precisely.
So, I just don't even understand how the justice system works anymore.
Well, it works by a 2 entirely different tiered system. You either have rights or you don't.
A lot of congressmen and women are citizens, or are they people?
Well, they're most likely consider themselves people, yes, because they would have to have been that. Well, under the corporation, would they have to be that to serve? No, probably not. But some of them that are aware probably are. I don't know to
They
what
probably
extent.
bracket you. Are you a U.S. citizen? I don't know at
Well,
that level.
here's the
I
thing.
don't even understand the process.
Here's the thing. At that level, and what you're dealing with at Congress is a lot of attorneys. Attorneys automatically pledge their estates to the bar.
Right.
They've pledged themselves over to the dark side, and they can't come back ever.
What do you
So,
mean ever? What
I mean,
about
they
those
can't ever come back.
there's
The
a
pledge that
young
they make to the bar is absolute. They pledge their entire state over to that side and to the British
yeah, but
Accreditation Registry.
if they
Doesn't
didn't
matter.
know that that's what they were doing,
Well, again, try and get out of a contract that you say, I didn't know that's what the contract said. Well, then you didn't read it. You can't tell me you didn't take an oath that you didn't know what you were doing. Sorry, you took the oath. Done deal. That's how it works. So, but
I
anyway.
just imagine one of this little 14-year-old girl's telling me, "Oh, I'm gonna be a lawyer when I grow up," and it's just weird.
Please dissuade her from that. Yeah.
In about she's 14, so then let's say 6 years, maybe 8 years, she'll be like a little baby attorney. It's hard to imagine that she would pledge her estate willingly and knowingly.
Scary idea. You should, somebody that gets to that point, you should start giving them books like written by Lysander Spooner and Common Sense and a few others that I could think of. Those are the books. Those are the first books that everybody should read anyway.
Well, anyways, people have a hard time defining rights. To be honest, right now, if you ask me what is a right, I should try to answer that right now. Anyways, if you ask me what is a right, I might have a hard time explaining it precisely.
Okay. The easiest way to explain a right that I've ever heard is the way that Mark Passio does it. He says a right is anything that you can do that does not cause damage, harm, loss, or injury to somebody else or their property. That's it.
Yeah, he says given from God. Yeah, but you gotta be
nature and nature's God. It's nature and nature's God. That's how it was laid down in the Declaration of Independence. That's how Jefferson, or probably actually Thomas Paine, wrote it. So that's the aspect of it. And whatever God it is, that's irrelevant. That's up to you. That's between you and
natural law is not common law, though. Natural law, common law derives its principles from natural law. Yes. Common law is natural law put into practice for the protection of our rights, which are. Yes. Anyways, I'm just responding to Iggy here. It's
but you're right.
But
you're right.
You really got to be super precise about this stuff. I mean, I think it's worth being precise because you can just destroy attorneys. The thing that blew my mind, all this learning this law stuff and studying with you and just reading treatises and all that, is as soon as I saw that what's his name, Biden gave preemptive pardons, I sort of spit out my coffee. I was like, that's not a thing. That's just not a thing. And I couldn't really figure out why.
A good point. You can't have a preemptive pardon, right? Because you can't pardon. The word pardon means you're pardoning someone for something they did.
Yeah, they've already been
not something they might
adjudicated. It's already been adjudicated. Some kind of anyways.
So anyway,
you can't have a preemptive pardon, and then I was talking with you a few days ago or weeks ago or something, and you're like, well, it's because it deprives the prospective defendants from due process of law. You can't preemptively pardon somebody for something they didn't do, assuming that they might do it, because that deprives any future defendants due process of law, and that is a natural right. What would you say? Because it's not a God-given right.
From an aspect of due process, it is, in a sense, it's such an old maxim of law that it's considered an aspect of a right in any society that has a court system, a system of which you have prosecution instead of just the king, coming down and swinging his sword and cutting your head off. Okay, any system, and of course we get all of ours from the basis of the Magna Carta and so on and so forth all the way through the foundational documents to where we are now. Well, due process protects the rights of both the defendant and the plaintiff. So the plaintiff has to give due notice to the defendant. He has to give him notice to say, hey, stop doing what you're doing, and the defendant doesn't do it or whatever, or the defendant stole something and he has witnesses. Okay, due process is what? We go before a magistrate, and the magistrate signs a proper warrant of commitment by two witnesses that says, yes, I saw this guy do X. Now, it's just the warrant to get him, but he still has his right to due process to face his accuser, be presented with evidence, and allow for a jury trial. All that's in the Constitution and laid out in the Bill of Rights and in the state's Bills of Rights as well.
And on top of it, it's a slippery slope. Like, even if you want to go there, right? And obviously Biden did, like, the highest executive of whatever. You're supposed to have respect for these people. I mean, I've lost respect a long time ago, but this is, like, so blatant. And
well, we're also dealing with a corporate government too. Just got to remember that.
In what sense? I mean, I know, but
The United States Federal Corporation, and then all the states are now corporations as well because of and after Reconstruction.
But even what does that have to do with my point about preemptive pardons? Like, a corporation should just have a policy about preemptive pardons? Is that
I'm saying that the common law, they're not basing anything that they do off of common law or natural law. So they're going to continue to be as ruthless, as Luciferian, as evil, as thieving as they possibly can get away with by whatever attorney work product doctrine they can come up with, is what I'm saying. You shouldn't ever look at a corporately run government and expect to find any justice there, because there won't be. It just won't exist.
Yeah. I wonder how we get the message out to people that they're not a party to the Constitution. Stop trying to make constitutional arguments. It's just, like, irrelevant. And
you have to do your doc set. You have to get your status corrected. And the VSOF is the only way to do it correctly. There's nobody out there of any paperwork that I've ever seen over 30 years that knows anything about what they're actually doing correctly. None of them. None of them know what they're doing.
Right. They do one thing right, and then everything else is BS or something like that.
Or the things that they do wrong contradict and then nullify the one thing that they might have done right.
Yeah, like this one case law or complaint that I was reading, it's like, it invokes the common law and statutory law, and it just, like, it's nonsensical. And you're like, who wrote this? And I don't know. It's crazy to be awake and to learn, like, the underpinnings, the undercurrents of where these laws even come from, these systems of law, and how they operate. And then you just start reading, and you're like, wait,
to make a point about that, as far as, like, understanding the basis of, like, certain foundations of law, like particularly the common law, I suggest to people, if they really want to understand the common law and actually quite a bit of foundational aspect of equity as well, just pick up a Black's Law Dictionary, and 10th is a pretty good edition for the maxims that are in the back of the book. Just pick up the Black's Law Dictionary and just start reading them, and start either underlining the ones that you really, really like, or go online if you prefer and download large books of just maxims of law. Pick the ones out that you were like, hey, this is really important, and save it, like I've done in the law of the case under these maxims of law, because these are things that apply automatically. They're things that have been so well adjudicated and been decided so many times that that's what makes them a maxim. They're laws in and of themselves.
So you're saying these maxims, but these are maxims of equity.
Some are, some aren't. Like this one, a court of admiralty has no jurisdiction over those things that are determined by common law, right?
Oh.
And an ecclesiastical court has no jurisdiction over matters of common law.
I mean, that just seems obvious.
I know, but that's why I'm telling people that you should start with maxims to read, because they are obvious once you start reading them, but it's a very good way to get a good foundation as to what is and what is not correct under law. Power that is derived cannot be greater from that which it is derived. That seems obvious, but people don't think about that. Where does the government get its power? From we, the people, from that which it is derived.
Can you cite Black's Law maxims in a case?
You don't have to say it's from Black's. You just say the maxim. You say, Your Honor, this is a violation of the maxim that the power that is derived cannot be greater from that which it is derived.
And so then the burden of trying to disprove that maxim is on them, and it's probably not possible.
Right. It becomes a matter of law. What you'd really want to do from the standpoint of arguing maxims is that you'd want to put them into a proper document in court that forces the judge to take judicial notice of said maxims. Then he has to take judicial notice of the maxims. Then if he goes against the maxims after having been
why would
given
he ever
judicial
take
notice,
judicial notice? I mean, what would be his
because
benefit?
that's how you force a judge to act like a judge. You put him on judicial notice. You say, court will now take judicial notice of this.
Judicial review is like a motion that you file or something like that.
When you force a judge to to take judicial notice of something, you're literally forcing them to be a judge. You're literally forcing them to follow canon. So if you force them to take judicial notice of certain maxims that have obviously that are specific to your case, you don't just want to throw any willy-dilly maxim in there that has nothing to do with your case, but find maxims appropriate to whatever you're doing, put them in there, and then make the court take judicial notice of it. That way they can't continue to trample. Anyway, all of this is kind of a side issue regarding court procedure, because if you are sovereign, if you are a de jure state citizen, one of the people, it is on public record as such. They cannot fucking touch you. They cannot charge you with these bullshit Roman civil laws because you're not subject. That's what the NCIC do not detain list is all about. That's what people like Amaru have done in his own county with.
But Amaru, are you on the NCIC do not detain, or you've just done a really great job at educating your local officials, quote unquote officials?
Probably the latter more than the first, but I'm not really sure because I don't have access to the NCIC system.
Are you friendly with them? I mean, I don't know if you're fine answering that, but like, are you friendly with them? Maybe just ask them.
I mean, I am except when they're not to me. So, but currently,
except when you're suing them,
I'm suing them, so I'm not that friendly with them at the moment because the administration has changed. So, and I'm currently suing the new sheriff, and I filed the suit before he was elected. So,
did you already file your complaint? Like, is it something I could read?
Yeah, I've filed it.
Cool.
It's right now. The last thing I've done is motion for the court to issue a citation to show cause because I've demanded that they produce evidence per the Colorado Open Records Act and the incident recording statute, and he's withholding evidence, and the court put out an order telling him that he has to comply with it, and he hasn't yet. So now I'm moving to put him in contempt.
Yep, that's what you do.
Did he already answer and do like a motion to dismiss or something like that?
Yeah, they tried that. That was the first thing they tried, but it didn't work.
I could probably ask you a lot of questions.
Well, okay, we could save that for another day, or we could have we could have a Wednesday open roundtable to talk about, because actually we've talked about that back and forth about setting up a time where we can actually talk about everything that he did in this case, where it's at, and like go through kind of like the whole timeline. But he's been busy, I've been busy. We'll get around to doing it so that it's all done in a way that not only that everybody can ask him questions, but that he's prepared and that he shows a clear timeline as to what's been done. So
scared him. Look, he left.
No, he has a bad connection every once in a while. So anyway, all right, I'm going to conclude class for the night. This is good to have a little discussion at the end, even though it wasn't necessarily about EOs. That's fine. At least we learned quite a bit, and I gave you guys some little interesting history about other aspects of law. And thanks everybody for the links also that you put into chat. And again, at some point in time, Amaru and I will sit down and have some time to hash out a timeline for everything that he's done, because everything it stems from and starts with getting your status corrected and removing yourself from these ridiculous contracts under Roman civil law. So thank all you for coming. Hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your weekend as always. And until next time, stay safe and stay sovereign.